Welcome to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and Neil. Hello everyone. Welcome to Analysis in Chains. I'm here with Serafin Lion Engel, the CEO and founder of Datawallet. Datawallet is a blockchain-based solution for keeping track and managing your data. And I want to thank you, Serafin, for taking the time to speak with me about your project today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So, obviously the first thing on everyone's mind is what is Datawallet? Like, what is this token? What can we do with Datawallet?
Sure. So Datawallet is a blockchain-based data exchange. So basically what we do is we give personal internet users a self-sovereign wallet that belongs to them and them only. And they can use it in order to source all the data they create all over the internet into one profile and selectively share it with interested companies, either in return for profit or in return for services. So it's actually not a super well-known industry, but the data brokerage industry is one of the most, unethical for one, but also one of the biggest industries in the U.S. economy. So we're talking about revenues north of 300 billion each year that sell an asset that is not theirs. They do not own this asset. It's actually the people that create this asset, meaning data, that own it. And so our mission is to give those revenue streams back to the people who create this data and actually also unlock the non-monetary value of data by being able to, integrate it into different platforms and leverage machine learning algorithms, train those machine learning algorithms with their own data and receive, ameliorated services in return.
So if I were using Datawallet would collect my data into a wallet that I controlled, and then I would have the option of sharing that data with interested third parties?
Almost. Yeah, almost. So that's absolutely right, except for that you source the data. So we basically give you the tools to extract the data either via APIs. So for instance, from Facebook, it's a simple OAuth, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, or for instance, also online purchase data from, say, Amazon. And that, for instance, would go via email. So you can give us access to your email, or rather, again, we give you the tools to access your email, extract the data you have in those Amazon receipts or in those Uber receipts, Airbnb receipts. You can take picture of offline receipts. We apply OCR, parse the receipts and extract those information. So you can hook up any of the data sources that we allow you to, for which we give you the tools, and then you can manage who precisely you want to give access to this data. And you will get a clear overview of what you will get in return, what sort of data they want, what you will get in return, what they intend to use with the data, and who those companies are.
That's absolutely fascinating turnabout of this standard data industry. Most people are aware the companies are picking up all of their data, but to have control over it and to sell it, I don't think too many people have thought about. Have you encountered a large amount of awareness when you've approached people with this idea?
Yeah, so it was very interesting because we've been at it for quite some time. So we started in early 2015, so a little bit more than 2.5 years now. And initially, we were very uncertain whether this was anything that people would be interested in, because it's a fundamentally new behavior, right? Managing your own data and controlling the flows of data, and becoming pretty much one's own data broker. So we were. This really just started as a hypothesis that we were looking to test. And interestingly, we did some tests around how precisely we can make this relevant with people, especially people that are not in tech, right? Because so we're based in San Francisco. Pitching this to somebody over here is fairly easy because they know what data is. But pitching it to an everyday person who mostly associates data maybe with something such as bandwidth on your phone plan, or maybe something have an association such as this being a security risk as something that can be hacked. Making it relevant for these type of people was something that we really wanted to figure out whether that is possible. And so we put an application out there which simply allowed people to link, 4 social media data sources: Facebook, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, and Twitter. And we get tens of thousands of people who wanted to sign up for this. And we faced so much demand that we couldn't even handle it ourselves and had to put people on a wait list. So it was interesting. It was something that we were very unsure of, but it very much resonated with people because, as you said, they know that there's something going on with their data. They can't necessarily put their finger on what it is, but they know that, for instance, if they click on a shoe on, say, Amazon, it keeps on following them around all over the internet. And they're queasy about it, and so they have a desire to understand what precisely happens to their data, and also claim ownership, make sure that they control how their data flows travel. So we've gotten a tremendous response for that so far.
Now, when you say control data, when I hear control data, I feel like that would mean I would be able to stop other people from brokering and selling data that isn't theirs, it's mine. Is that exactly what's going on? Because it sounds more like I'm able to monetize data that's already mine, but other people would still be able to sell data at their will. Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, by no means does, you become your own data broker mean that immediately any other entity will not have access to your data anymore and, ceases operations in terms of stopping to sell your data. That is not what is happening, right? We're looking at the different scenario though, where, if you bring your own data to market, you have the best data about you. And so what I mean by that is that data brokers have access only to either publicly available information, right? So for instance, what you post on Facebook and which is not set to, private in terms of the security setting or the privacy setting. And, or, if you post something publicly on Twitter, they'll be able to scrape that, put that into a profile and sell that off. However, for instance, they cannot get access to, anything that is labeled as private. So maybe if you have a certain Facebook page or something like that, that is not necessarily anything they can access. So on Facebook, for instance, we did that analysis for our user base. Only 7% of all the data that people have created on Facebook was set to publicly available, and that was mostly demographic information. On top of that, they can't access things such as your Amazon purchase history, right, or your Uber ride history, stuff like that. So they only get access to a fragment of the data that you actually create. Secondly, taking data from those individual silos from all the data platforms that they try to scrape data from and piecing them together into one profile is very hard because there are no common identifiers between individual platforms. So for instance, even if they were able to somehow get some data from Amazon, tying that back into data that you created on Facebook and that they sourced on you is near impossible. So data brokers, apply a lot of probabilistic models in an effort to achieve higher match rates across platforms, but ultimately the data quality that they have is terrible, right? So even if you do have identifiers on your customers in the form of, say, cookies, and you try to you go to an ad exchange and you try to retarget them, which seems like a fairly easy task, the chance that you actually find them again in an ad exchange is 2.9%. So you will waste 97.1% of your ad budget.
That's a lot lower than I expected.
Yeah, it's because they hide it very well, right? So if you take a look at, for instance, the websites of companies such as TapAd that do cross-device user management. So for instance, trying to figure out whether a data point that you created on your mobile phone also belongs to a data point that you created on, say, your laptop. They will tell you that their match rates are 98%, 99%, but actually what they don't tell you is that they both report true positives and true negatives, right? So for instance, they will tell you, okay, this device does not belong to person A. It also doesn't belong to person B. It also doesn't belong to person C. If they find that out, they will also take that as a correct match rate, right? And so that is how the actual match number is something more like 10.7%. And so there's a lot of hot air in the industry, and they can cover it up quite successfully because, frankly, there are not a lot of alternatives to this model at the moment. But so if you bring your own data to the market in the sense of you taking your own data, say, from Facebook, and you take that data, make it available, and you take the data, say, from Amazon, and you make that available. You tie those two data silos together. You're actually able to offer data which has up to 100% of the data that you create on any one given platform, and you can link it deterministically to data from another platform. So at any point in time, when you bring this data to market, you will have the best data about you. So that goes to say, very long answer here, but that goes to say that if a company wants to find something out about you, right, and wants to understand you better as a consumer and wants to be able to better service you, they will have the choice to go to a data broker and try to and acquire a profile that is based on a fraction of the data that you create and probabilistically piece together, or they can actually go to you and get 100% deterministically linked cross-platform data directly from you. And so, yes, absolutely. You won't be able to stop data brokers from selling your data immediately after onboarding Datawallet, but you are, giving the companies, the data purchasers, a choice to buy the best data about you directly from you. And so that is a value proposition that will incrementally lead the data brokerage industry to become obsolete, because frankly, they can never offer a better product than you.
It's interesting because as someone living in 2017, I just sort of have this image of nebulous companies that are all seeing and all knowing, listening to me at all times, and would probably already know all this information about me. And it's rather surprising to hear that there's a lot of hot air in the industry, and that maybe it's not as accurate, the information they have, as we might be led to believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think of it, it's very much in their interest that they are being perceived that way, right? It is a good. You would want to, as a company, trying to reach the right type of consumers, even if those companies are nebulous. What they're offering is probably very interesting to you, right? Because you're trying to increase conversion rates, you're trying to optimize your bottom line and everything. So that type of imagery is very much in their interest, and it's a image that they are curating with quite a lot of effort.
Now, just from the perspective of the companies, what sort of information are they looking for? It would imagine, just to clarify a little bit, I would imagine that companies would be buying large amounts of aggregated data or large amounts of data in order to get demographic information. Like, how much would a profile actually go for if I was going to sell it?
Right. So, I mean, in terms of pricing, what we are doing right now, we're allowing, since we're releasing an API that basically allows any company to build on top of Datawallet, and users will be able to share their data with them based upon expressive consent. So the pricing will be up to each individual company to see what precisely they will have to what they will have to offer their potential customers or target users in exchange for the data. Now, we ourselves, we also have a platform, an enterprise platform called Datawallet Business, which is a market research tool, and we price user profiles somewhere between $1 to $10. So that depends on how much data you actually contributed to the analyses that we are making available to enterprise clients. In terms of the type of data that companies want, it really differs on a company by company basis. But the common denominator is somewhere along the lines of social media data. That is something that companies are actually still struggling with, because most of the analytics tools right now rely on Twitter data, which is not very deep. It's not very insightful, especially compared to, say, Facebook. So that is something that we've been getting a lot of demand for. But right now, also purchase data, right? So being able to collate interest data and actually verified purchase data, understanding what the interest profiles are of somebody that has bought a particular product, and how that differs from somebody who is who's contemplating potentially buying a product but hasn't bought yet, right? Also differentiating that to people that have purchased this product on an ongoing basis. There may be an evangelist. So these types of data sources are in high demand. And in terms of what companies usually request this type of data, would be market research companies, consumer packaged goods companies, and just consumer-facing brands, right? I think a lot of the companies that come to us simply want to understand their target customer better. Sometimes they want to understand their competitors' target customer better to really understand what their positioning is, as perceived by their customers and not as perceived by their own management team.
So tell me, what is the advantage of running a system like this on blockchain as opposed to just having a web interface and a centralized database sitting on an Amazon cloud?
Right. So I mean, we started with a let's call it a centrally stored or a centralized data marketplace, right? Just in order to figure out, does this concept at all resonate with people? And so one thing that we kind of ran into after some time is that we were starting to become a little bit hypocritical. So we told people, look, data brokerage is a big problem. It is something that can be fixed if you take data brokerage into your own hands and actually control the flows of your own data. And we can give you insights about who the companies are that want to access your data, what they want to do with it, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, we were kind of getting into a space where we also kind of had to hide from them that we sort of co-owned their data. And that was a value proposition. That was a part of the value proposition that we felt very uneasy about.
I imagine they felt uneasy about it as well.
Absolutely. And it's something that we wanted to address because we wanted to make clear, look, it is not about us having access to your data or us monetizing your data above and beyond the way that you are intending to monetize it, right? Such as like just selling it off behind your back and making a bigger profit for us. That is something that we really wanted to make sure that people didn't, that we eased people's concerns with regards to that. And so what we had been pondering for quite some time is, how can we make this wallet self-sovereign? Right? How can we give people a wallet that truly belongs to them and them only? And so, for that, we had devised a way to leverage blockchain in order to achieve that, right? So we basically have a wallet where you are holding a split key and we're holding a split key. And the data right now is actually stored on your own device. We're not storing it on our own premises anymore. And then all the transaction logs are happening by the blockchain. The actual data transfer happens off-chain, and that is a system which is scalable because, frankly, we're talking hundreds of megabytes, even gigabytes per person, which is something that'd be prohibitive right now at this point in time to transfer via the blockchain. But it's a system where we are truly disintermediated and where we can truly focus on giving people the tools to extract any sort of data they create and provide them with an ecosystem where they can exchange their data in return for profit or for services, right? So in order to unlock the true value of the data. And that is something that we as a company wanted to focus on. That is something that we as a company, will be paid for. But we have no business being paid for data that that our consumers didn't consent us to sell, right? And that is something that we clearly wanted to communicate by making the data wallet self-sovereign. Also on the enterprise side, that eased a lot of concerns because companies wanted to onboard their own customers onto Data Wallet. They wanted to learn about their own customers, and they did not want to build out the entire infrastructure around extracting data, cleaning the data, standardizing it, normalizing it, and so on and so forth, to ultimately bring it to insights. But they wanted to have the insights right away, which is something that we as Data Wallet can provide. However, they felt uneasy us sort of co-owning the data of their own user base, right? And that also, right now, the blockchain integration and making Data Wallet self-sovereign was something that eased a lot of concerns on the enterprise side. So we feel that the move towards the blockchain was sort of the final piece in the puzzle in order to make this a system which is not hypocritical, in which equally appeals to users and to enterprises.
It sounds like your role has increasingly become a marketplace then, sort of like eBay for data.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And what role would the tokens have in such a marketplace? Is that the way that the medium of exchange for people to buy and sell their data?
Exactly, exactly. So it's the primary medium of exchange, so they can users can earn our token. It's called the data exchange token, or DXT for short. They can earn the token by expressively sharing their data with interested companies, and they will also be able to spend token on data-driven products. So they could, for instance, take their if somebody we're releasing an API, and if a developer builds a very interesting, say, personal AI concierge, then people could link their data in order to personalize the AI concierge, but they can also reimburse the developer of this application for the computing power and then a profit margin on top of that. So we're building a closed loop economy where DXT functions as the primary means of exchange.
And do you have anything where any sort of KYC or know your customers, so that you can tell, like, if I'm selling my data to a company, that they are who they say they are, and it's not some malicious group that's going to resell it afterwards?
Yeah, definitely. So we have a KYC process. We're working together with a company that is currently handling this at the moment. We are looking into partnerships with other companies in the blockchain space that have championed this concept. So it's a very important aspect to having a marketplace that is not flooded with fake accounts. But at the same time, we initially, in our centralized version, that is something that we did not have, and it's fairly easy to spot fake accounts from real accounts, right? So the interesting thing is that when people make their data available in their data wallet, they also can link all their historic data. So it's not just the case that data collection starts from the day that you onboard Data Wallet, but you can make all your historic data available as well. And so it's fairly easy to understand what somebody's a normal person's mean data production looks like. And in that way, it's fairly easy to spot if there's an account that has, say, 2 standard deviations above the mean for data production. That's easy to flag. Or if an account starts producing a lot more data after onboarding Data Wallet, that's also something which is fairly easy to spot. So given the fact that we can contextualize the data quite easily, it is actually not that big of a deal to spot fake accounts.
Interesting. Now, regarding the tokens, I understand you guys are having a token sale that's going on now. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct. So our whitelist pre-sale starts on the 15th of November, and thank you very much. And our public sale will take place in December, with the exact date still being announced.
That's really interesting. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the process of setting up this token sale. Like, I understand that it's gotten a little bit more, what's the word? You have to do a lot more legal work than maybe you had to do 6 months ago. Is that the case?
That's a good question, because we started the process around setting up our token sale about 5 months ago. So I'm not entirely sure what it looked like before then. But it's definitely the case that there are a lot of administrative costs involved in setting up a token sale, from hiring a quality legal counsel that can assess the design of your token within the current U.S. securities framework, which is of course of utmost importance, to doing an analysis for each jurisdiction actually that you want to sell your token in, to just structuring the terms of use in order to have a good legal framework in place for individuals to buy the token. So all of that adds up quite significantly. And then you also need to build up the entire infrastructure with regards to partners for cybersecurity and so on and so forth. So transaction costs in this entire token sale process are immensely high.
And yeah, I can imagine. I've heard that the like one of the standard things is you end up choosing regions based on their on how their legal structure is toward token sales. So a lot of people will set up in, for example, Switzerland or Panama or Singapore. Are you selling just in the States, or are you taking one of those routes as well?
Um, yes, so we are selling from the States. We're selling from the States and in the States. And so I think one very important thing to consider is that, even if you do set up an entity in, say, Switzerland, if you sell token in the US, you will still potentially, be subject to any regulation that may or may not be enacted by the SEC.
Hmm.
So, you simply having a foundation in Switzerland or in Singapore will not isolate you from that if you do sell token in the US. On the other hand, I think we made a very conscious decision to keep our entity in the US and not set up a specific entity somewhere in a more tax-friendly environment outside of the US, specifically for the token. Because I think it's an important point in time where it's not a regulated market yet, but I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially the ones that already have up and running US operations, need to understand that this is also about giving the US government incentives to be friendly towards ICOs and a token economy, right? So I see a lot of
Hmm.
entrepreneurs that want to sell tokens, but then they are really adamant about for instance, incorporating, say, in Switzerland or even in the Caymans in order to minimize their taxation on their proceeds. At the same time, they do want to sell in the US and they do appreciate how important of a market this is. So, we're taking the stance of saying, look, we want to, we are a US company with US operations, and we want to make sure that it's actually in the interest of the US government to be a friendly jurisdiction towards token sales. And I'm hoping that this is something that, will become more of a prevalent debate, because I think that is a topic that is largely overlooked at the moment.
Hmm. No, absolutely. It's something that gets glossed over. People tend to think of uh, optimizing for their particular business, but for the industry overall, no, it's not something that comes up a lot.
Absolutely.
Hmm. Um, we should probably wrap up, but before we go, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the crypto market overall. You are in an excellent position to see sort of the drama that's been unfolding in the regulatory sphere. Do you have any thoughts on the on upcoming projects? Anything that you would like to say about to an aspiring entrepreneur that wants to start their own crypto project?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the best time ever to do that. I think that what I find particularly fascinating is that in order to do a very successful token sale, it's not the case anymore that you have to be here in San Francisco or in Silicon Valley, right? 3 4 years ago, when ICOs were not really a thing yet, there was no shot that you could build a big multinational startup if you didn't have at least some sort of like connection to Silicon Valley and San Francisco. So right now we're seeing companies from Spain or from all over the place hold very successful token sales. Berlin, absolutely, with Polkadot, or if you take a look at the guys from Ripio, they're doing it from Chile, I believe. And I think that's something that's absolutely fascinating. So I think that projects are being assessed much more on their tech, on the merits of the technology that they're trying to champion, rather than their connections within a network. So I think that it's a tremendous time for anybody who has interest to build a real value add technology in the space to pursue this right now. At the same time, it definitely is the case that you'll be going up against a lot of projects that are forcing a tokenization of their business model, right? So I mean, just the sheer amount of ICOs that are coming to market at the moment is growing exponentially, and there is a lot of noise that you need to cut through. But at the same time, I'm convinced that quality projects will, come to the surface and will get the attention that they deserve. And for that, there has never been a better time. And I'm frankly very excited about it because it's so much more of an efficient process of, not just acquiring capital, but also, being recognized in the community, and also edge cases that are not necessarily, protocols, but just very interesting applications on top of the blockchain are getting a lot of interest that, in the past years has not been there. So I think it also sets the stage for, for a multitude of use cases that so far have struggled, to take center stage. So I think it's a fantastic time, and I would encourage everybody that is thinking about this to really build a value-add technology to go for it.
Absolutely. I'm right there with you. Thank you very much for joining me. Serafin Lion Engel, CEO of Datawallet. His token sale is going to be going on shortly. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
That's our show. Thanks for tuning in to Analysis in Chains with Nathan and Neil. Check us out at analysisinchains.com, on iTunes, Podbean, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep on hashing.